I have some pretty fond memories from elementary school. I especially loved learning about the phases of the moon, raising caterpillars and releasing the butterflies, and even playing a really awful rendition of hot cross buns on the recorder was pretty fun in retrospect. Why did we all do that, by the way? And I even liked learning about the more traditional school subjects like math and English, but when adding 9 plus 10 started to feel a little more frustrating than exciting, there was always the reprieve of the computer lab. We would visit the computer lab once a week as a sort of extracurricular activity and do anything from typebook reports to watch Tim and Moby get up to some silly antics. But even before all of that, one of my earliest memories from the computer lab was playing on a program called KidPix. What started off as a freely available digital paint program back in 1989 eventually became a childhood staple for a lot of kids growing up in the 90s and early 2000s. And while at first glance it might just look like a Microsoft Paint clone, anyone who has used the wacky brush or clicked the undo face button in KidPix will be able to tell you that it's much more than that. I grew up playing the 1998 version of KidPix at school, where it was kind of taught to us as a skill. Our computer teacher would make something like a nature scene or a house with the different tools, then test us on how well we could replicate it. I think it was mostly used as a way for us to learn computer literacy and how to be creative, but it's still funny to think of the school board all deciding that some kindergartners should learn how to use KidPix in school because it would be a vital tool in the future. It turns out that KidPix skills didn't really help with too much later on in life, unfortunately. But KidPix wasn't limited to only making houses or nature scenes. The best part about it is that it had so many options and features that you could make anything. And while the same was still true for more adult-oriented paint programs like Mac Paint or Microsoft Paint, KidPix had way more tools to help bring a specific vision to life or to just have fun exploring the interface. There are abstract brushes, rainbow brushes, tools for creating anything from a stack of bricks to a line of cartoon bugs, and plenty of silly twists in between. Each tool and feature had its own sound effect, which really contributed to how much this thing captured my attention as a kid. If having seemingly endless options wasn't enough, you could just as easily get sucked into a single paintbrush tool to just listen to the sound it made over and over. Not that I did that or anything, that would be weird. My favorite tools to use in KidPix also happened to be the ones that had the best noises. I was pretty partial to the rainbow tinsel, rainbow polka dots, and the classic rainbow tool. Clearly I was very enticed by bright colors. Some honorable mentions include the cartoon bug brush that gives them all little voices, the what I'd call stick brush that makes an ASMR-esque crackling sound, and this tool that I don't know how to describe that also makes a sound I don't know how to describe. Whatever it is, it really pleased me as a kid. And of course, who could forget the various undo sound effects that played whenever you clicked on this little guy's face?
Oh no!
Uh-oh.
Phew! Oops! Yikes!
Oops.
As much as there were fun sounds though, there were also plenty of choices in KidPix that I did not enjoy clicking on because they just plain unsettled me. This pyramid tool plays a weirdly eerie and echoey construction noise. The brush that creates a no symbol is accompanied by a siren that always stressed me out, and whatever noise this is on the door tool just made me feel vaguely threatened. While we're on the subject of things in KidPix that freaked me out as a kid, there's also even more examples in the eraser options. There's a jumble of letters that collect on screen, a fadeaway transition, and of course the iconic KidPix dynamite that blows up the whole picture. While I really appreciate the extra thought and creativity put into these little options and animations just for the sake of variety, not all of them are so innocent. There's this one. Though, I'll be honest, it really isn't that bad. Then there's this countdown option.
5,
4,
3,
2,
1.
0.
While it's kind of random, I guess it isn't scary, but before I knew what they were counting down to, it definitely put me on edge. Also, what's with the lady's voice at the end? It's a very interesting choice. The worst offender to me though was always this one. Honestly, I think the wow sound is kind of funny now, but when I was just minding my own business in the computer lab and was jump scared by this weird animation, it was not as funny then. Definitely learned my lesson to proceed with caution when clicking on anything else while drawing. One tool that I could confide in to not freak me out though was the stamp tool. As much as all the different brushes with their sound effects often inspired me to create anything I could think of, or just fill the canvas with every kind of brush and a big mess of colors, the stamp option was a great feature that offered even more to play around with that wasn't quite as abstract. If you weren't sure what to draw, then the stamps were the perfect place to go next. I'd say emojis are very well known at this point, ranging from highly detailed pictures of produce to 10 different train emojis, but I'm here to take a stance for the overlooked pioneer, the emojis before emojis, the KidPix stamp collection. If you think the variation in emojis is broad, there are even more weirdly specific stamps in this program to choose from. Insects, pirates, scuba gear, Lyle crocodile, frying pans, all of these existed as low-res, clip art-esque stamps to embellish any artwork you could think up. When I used KidPix in elementary school, I figured what I saw was all there was. I always thought taking up a whole row of the stamps with a collection of Indiana Jones inspired pictures was kind of a weird choice. I mean, I wasn't building a house and using the rainbow tool over it to just fill it with flames, whips, and fire ants. But it just goes to show that there was a lot to KidPix that I had no idea even existed, let alone knew how to use. It turns out there's a whole drop-down list of additional stamp categories to choose from, and if the other stamps didn't seem weirdly specific enough, these other categories definitely filled in the gaps. We've got clowns, worms, stand mixers, hand mixers, Willy Wonka hats, shopping carts, frogs, a wide selection of mildly horrific monsters, cheese graters, dentures, freaky-looking babies, almost anything you can think of, you can probably stamp it. And believe it or not, the range of these stamps expands even more when you head over to the Moopies section. Moopies is a section that features a lot of the same tools as the regular drawing space, except in this area they all have multiple frames of animation to make them move after drawing. And if Moopies doesn't satisfy your need for animated pictures, there's also the Stampinator that tracks about 5 seconds of movement and plays it back in a loop. Wacky TV, a series of animated AVI or movie files that can be distorted with different buttons, digital puppets that have frames mapped to different keys on the keyboard so that the right keys can make them look like they're talking and moving around, and Slideshow that's just a full-on animation studio. Yeah, I got a little creative. For what seems at first glance like it could just be a watered-down kiddie version of Mac or Microsoft Paint, by the 1998 version, KidPix was clearly not just your regular drawing program. Things got even more advanced though in KidPix 3. My dad randomly got this for me one day in the mid-2000s, and while I hadn't played with KidPix in years, I was immediately reminded of all the memories I had of the version I played with back in the computer lab. But KidPix 3 was different. I guess you can't expect most, if any, franchises or brands to just stick to the exact same look and style without ever changing. But the jump between KidPix 1 and 2 to this more modern version seemed like maybe too big of a leap. The entire interface was overhauled in a 3D style, with a more stylized, sort of tech-based feel. There were more moving parts, more sounds even when just switching between tools, and more modernized or 3D-ified changes to the features that most KidPix users had grown to know and love.
Hi, I'm Amanda Emila.
There was also a new theme song that played on startup, which I will make you listen to the entirety of because I still know all the words.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Zero.
KidPix, come on and play with KidPix. Wow! Change it up, draw it up, move it up. There it is, move around, and the sound.
They just don't make music like they used to anymore. Even though I was a little disappointed that this version of the program was different, I was still all about it and very quickly got right back into my classic KidPix habits that I was used to. There were a lot of returning elements from the past version that I recognized, only now they were more enhanced. A majority of the paintbrush options carried over with their accompanying classic sounds, much to both my delight and dismay. But in addition to all my favorite rainbow options, there were now brushes that just made random stuff? I don't know how else to describe it. In the older version, there were a few tools that painted random things like dice or little bugs, but KidPix 3, all new and fancy, would let you spawn trails of things like candy, balloons, Christmas decorations, eggs, rocks, money, just little things. I don't know why this seems so weird to me. Maybe because even with the use of the wide world of KidPix stamps, all the tools and features never seemed quite this specific. You could make a single sun or door for a drawing, but a whole pile of tumbled rocks just seems different. As much as this was new to me, I became weirdly obsessed with these new brushes. Almost every project I made probably used one of these to an extent, though for the most part, they were treated the same as pretty much every other KidPix tool, which just means that I spammed the canvas with it to watch it fill up and listen to the sounds it made while drawing. Speaking of the noises for these brushes, I really think that's part of what made them just extra enticing to me. Sure, some of the older sound effects were nice, but I'm convinced these new ones were the unofficial start of oddly satisfying and ASMR content. My favorites were the money and the candy. Just because I thought they looked cool and liked listening to their sounds. Not all of the sounds were winners though. I don't want to know how they got the sound for this one. And I can't mention the updated KidPix 3 sounds without also mentioning the additional undo button voices.
Wait a minute. Oh no. Now wait a minute. I made a boo-boo, yeah.
Oops. Uh-oh. Yep. Oh, man.
Undo, undo. Whoops.
Uh-oh. No, no, no.
Uh-oh.
Yikes!
Oops.
No way.
My bad. Who don't want it?
Oh no!
Maybe a few random voice clips don't seem like a big deal, but of all the sounds in KidPix, these are some of the few that are actually quotable. I mean, trust me, I'd be making the money and rock sound effect if I could, but instead, the only things I could actually vocalize were things like,
Oh, man.
and
I made a boo-boo, yeah.
if they got stuck in my head. All the original stamps made a return too, and they're also accompanied by new additions called stickers, which is just a collection of random clip art. Don't get me wrong, clip art was and is useful for what it is, but these stickers feel a lot less like the fun and stylized stamps and more just like a random collection of images thrown in for the sake of content. I think it's the lack of cohesion that bugs me the most. As much as some of the stamps are kind of weird, the clip art stickers just don't hit the same way that the original stamps do. There's also a new selection of animated stickers, a bunch of backgrounds, tons of printables and coloring pages, and the return of the slideshow station. A lot of the changes seen in KidPix 3 seemed to be making things more modern and 3D, and while I clearly liked using some of these newer options, my biggest takeaway after revisiting this program is that it just doesn't feel the same. I have nostalgia for both versions I played, and maybe it's the memories that I have of being amazed as a kid by the earlier edition that may make me a little biased towards it. With only some of the features being recognizable though, I found that I was kind of missing the older version when playing number 3, and not only for the sake of nostalgia, but for the sake of fun. There were still a lot of features, but while most of the new additions were cool, I guess, they seemed to favor quantity over quality. There's just something that makes this modern KidPix seem inferior to the original, and I can't quite put my finger on it. There's an even newer KidPix version, KidPix 5, released in 2018. It's called the Steam edition, although it's not available on Steam, and is just sort of a revamp of its previous iterations, with all the same features, but with another interface overhaul, a bit more cohesion as far as some of the stamps and images go, and with a lot more functionality for making animations with sounds and music. Still though, it seems so different from the slightly unsettling version I used to get overwhelmed by in the computer lab. Maybe that's what it's missing. Some good old, unintentionally creepy pictures and noises. As much as it's easy to poke fun at all the sort of strange features of KidPix, they still added and continue to add to the creative and wacky nature of the program altogether. Some parts are weird, but they encourage exploration, making discovery feel exciting and unpredictable. Without any of the varied sound effects or occasional jump scares, it just wouldn't be the same. And as I found later, trying to modernize these features, as weird or dated as they were, they also weren't the same when brought into a new dimension. Things don't always have to be super modern and super unique if there's an existing formula that seems to work. Though at the same time, KidPix hasn't exactly been super popular since the 90s to early 2000s, so I guess I can't blame them for trying something new as the years go on. And even if it isn't the same crazy iteration I grew up with, I'm still glad that KidPix is available for the next generation to also make houses, spam the candy tool, and blow up their drawings with dynamite. A huge thank you to Kayla Geary, Brett Morgan, Bunzo, Croissant Man, Dylan Webb, Joe Cheeseman, Johan Egg, Kevin Evans, Mark Kent, Mr. Pants, Emily, Paper Sam, Pixel Puppy, Sarah, The Goomba Mattress, Unan Almandor, and the rest of my patrons for supporting me. Making this end screen on a very real version of KidPix from 1998 almost crashed my computer, so I hope you appreciate it.